What's going on, my homies? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am back with the season opener team builder for this season of the Last Battle Circuit, the premier season of this league, commissioned by Kyle A. If you haven't already seen the draft analysis for this season, I'd recommend go giving that a look before we dive into the team builder, just so you can be familiar with the Pokemon that we have to work with on my roster and kind of how I envisioned them working together for this team. So make sure to check that out down in the description below. But with that said, we are going to go ahead and dive right on into this Week 1 team builder where we are taking on Max Rapture, the coach of the Tasmanian Toxicroaks. He'll be linked down in the description below as well. Make sure to go give him a look and check out his team builder today if he uploads one. I know he's from Australia or from that region, so it might come up a little bit later in the day potentially on his end. But yeah, make sure to go check that out today, as well as check out the battles on both of our channels coming out tomorrow. So with that said, just very briefly, let's go over, maybe not so briefly, we'll see. Let's go over the matchup here, as you guys told me in the comments in the draft analysis that you wanted me to give more of a team building focus in my videos once again this season, just like we did in the GBA. So that's what we're going to try to do for you guys here. So his roster this season consists of the Dragonite, Landorus, Incarnate, which is only Sandforce. Sheerforce is banned this season, thankfully. Mandibuzz, Raikou, Tangrowth, Metagross, Vaporeon, Mesprit, and Garbodor, Kangaskhan, and Mega Diancie. So he has a pretty solid team overall. My roster, as you can see now, I'm not going to just read it off for you. It's pretty cool, pretty momentum oriented with some strong threats, and I think it actually matches up relatively well against his team. He does have some pretty notable threats that I need to keep an eye on here in this matchup. Specifically, the Mega Diancie and the Raikou are two Pokemon that give me a lot of trouble. In all honesty, the Raikou does have the coverage that it needs to have to hit my electric resists with super effective damage. It has access to HP, Ice, and Shadow Ball, as well as Thunderbolt, which gives some neutral coverage against my whole team. So Raikou is going to be kind of annoying to deal with just based upon that. Thankfully, Raikou is not super strong naturally. It's not really a breaker. It's more of a cleaner or revenge killer, so I can design some ways to kind of keep it in check here with my team. But the bigger threat is the Mega Diancie, I think, because my team is hit entirely neutrally by its dual stabs. And that's entirely my fault in drafting. I should have probably picked up something that is able to at least take those two types of hits at the same time. That would usually be the role of the Steel type. Unfortunately, the Steel type on my team in Cobalion does not resist Fairy. So that's something that's going to be really tricky to build around as well. I'm going to have to bring a lot of kind of bulky checks to Mega Diancie because it has access to the Rock Polish, which would allow it to obviously outspeed any offensive checks that I try to bring in to check the Mega Diancie. So yeah, Mega Diancie and the Raikou are both looking like really annoying threats for my team. Plus, he does have Dragonite. All of his Pokemon can use Z moves, and Dragonite with a Z move plus Dragon Dance or an Agility, you know, that's always a pretty big threat to be concerned about too. So offensively, his matchup is pretty solid. I think where I can take advantage of him though is on his defenses, as I can really keep him on his back foot with the momentum options on my team, as well as just with the variety of offensive options that I have on my team too. My team does allow me to be relatively unpredictable in how I'm going to approach any given matchup in terms of the offensive threats that I'm going to try to bring, and even really the defensive threats too. Is kind of the nature of the bulky offensive drafting style that I have. And yeah, so it's going to be a really interesting matchup depending on, you know, what we both decide to bring here this time around. But kind of how I'm going to approach this matchup is that I'm going to really try to hammer in on the fact that he has so many ice weaknesses. A lot of his better mons are weak to ice or are weak to the combination of ice and ground, and that's something my Mew specifically is going to be trying to take advantage of here in this game because of Mew's natural bulk, allowing it to take hits from stuff like Raikou and Mega Diancie, and then having access to ice plus ground coverage. I think that can really put in a lot of work here in this matchup if I support it properly. So that's spoilers, I guess. The Mew is going to be what I'm kind of building around here for this particular team. But yeah, I'm just going to try to really hammer in on that ice plus ground weakness as the only Pokemon on his team that can take hits relatively well from that combination is the Vaporeon and kind of the Mesprit. Everything else does not appreciate it. Like almost everything else is actually hit super effectively by that combination too, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, well, hopefully that'll be able to help us out here in this particular game. So that's one of the big things. The other thing, there's a couple other things. One is kind of his hazard removal is kind of soft considering the fact that he has a Dragonite that he's likely going to try to keep you know, at 100% of health when it comes in. His only defoggers are the Dragonite itself, the Mandibuzz, and the Landorus Incarnate, I believe, and Mega Diancie can Magic Bounce rocks as well, of course. But, yeah, I think I can pressure his defoggers enough to where the Dragonite's not going to be able to maintain its multi-scale in this game. Now, there are some ways he'd be able to defog. I think if he brings Landorus I as his defogger, that's his best bet to be able to defog against my team, because I know I can pressure the Mandibuzz a lot here in this game. I really think I can with the mons I have access to. And yeah, so we'll just kind of have to see how that goes. But the only other thing I wanted to mention here right out of the gates is his speed tiers are pretty favorable for me. I do have a lot of Pokemon that outspeed his most common speed tier of 80. He has a lot of Pokemon at base 80 on his team. I think he has at least 3 and a couple that are like in the 70 to 75 range as well. So I have a lot of stuff on my team that outspeeds that. One of the lowest speed tiers on my team is actually base 80. Most of my Pokemon are actually above that speed tier, so that will play into my advantage for sure in this matchup, I think. So that's just a little bit about my thoughts here at the draft preview. But like I said, I am going to try to build around the Mew here in this game because of that combination of the ice and ground being so effective against his team. So we're going to start this off with the Mew. I'm going to go with a Nasty Plot bulky, like more bulky, specially defensive variant, kind of like mixed defenses, for the Mew, as bulky Nasty Plot plus those two moves that I mentioned, Ice Beam plus Earth Power. It just hits his entire team neutrally, most of his team super effectively, and it takes hits from all of his biggest threats. He does not deal with Mew very well at all. His Dark type is the Mandibuzz, which does not beat Mew, okay? It can't beat Mew. It can Toxic me, and that can be really annoying, but if I have a Nasty Plot up and rocks on the field, it doesn't want to switch into Mew. It could probably live a +2 Ice Beam, but it can't knock me out in one hit with anything that he has on the Mandibuzz. So I could easily see him bringing something like a Ghost DMZ Raikou to try to help him break through the Mew if he's worried about that. I think that's definitely a solid possibility that he could bring here in this game, and that's something I will have to keep an eye on, as Mew is just an absolutely massive threat against his team as a setup option. So I'm gonna have to play around the Raikou really carefully when it comes to this Mew, but aside from the Raikou, this is not 2-hit KO'd by Timid Diancie. I think he needs to be timid or hasty or naive Mega Diancie to outspeed my Cobalion, which otherwise can outspeed and knock it out in one hit with Iron Head. So I think he has to outspeed that with Diancie. This set allows me to avoid the 2-hit KO from the max special attack Moonblast, as well as the 2-hit KO from the uninvested, hasty, or naive natured Diamond Storm from the Mega Diancie as well. So Mew is able to deal with Mega Diancie as long as I can keep this thing healthy. It can deal with the Raikou. I'm not 2-hit KO'd by Expert Belt Raikou, which was the set that I based most of my calcs on, as if he's Specs, I'm getting 2-hit KO'd anyways, and if he is the Z move, then obviously I don't appreciate taking the Never Ending Nightmare either, so, or even a Gigavolt Havoc from the Raikou. So the Mew is able to take the hits that it needs to take, and if I think he's going to be a Z move, then I can relatively easily kind of pivot around with my team to try to see what exactly his Z move is on his Raikou. But that's going to be the omnipresent threat throughout this whole season, is try to figure out what Pokemon is carrying the Z move. That's the main reason why I've kind of avoided playing in leagues that, like throughout this generation, that allow any Pokemon to use the Z move. It's just very hard to strategically prep for those types of mons. You really have to outplay those types of mons, or those types of, I guess, rule sets you really have to outplay people in those types of games that have those rule sets where any Pokemon can have, you know, a Z Crystal, because you really don't know who's about to nuke you at any point during a certain game. So it's going to be a challenge from a defensive standpoint, but I think it also is going to be nice for my draft, as I really did draft with the thought in mind that a lot of my Pokemon can use Z Crystals, like my Cobalion, for example, excellent sweeper with the Z Crystal. Mew can be a good sweeper with the Z Crystal. Zygarde, obviously a great sweeper. Alolan Persian, those are probably the 4 best Z Crystal users on my team, and, you know, when my opponent's not going to really know which of those Pokemon is going to be carrying the Z Crystal, that could really come in clutch for me offensively as well. So it's just going to be a really offensively oriented season, I think, with that rule in place. So anyway, that's the Mew for this week. I believe, I don't recall exactly what the speed was creeping. I'd have to go back and look at his roster again. I know I wasn't creeping as high as I'm creeping Adamant Dragonite. That's what it was. I'm creeping Adamant Dragonite because he really doesn't have much of a reason to run Jolly Dragonite unless he's trying to speed tie Togekiss, which really doesn't make too much sense to me, as he would probably want the power from Adamant to be able to actually do much damage to a fatter Togekiss set. So, yep, this is outspeeding Adamant Dragonite. I think that's what he's going to be, and that probably means this is going to outspeed the vast majority of his team as well. So this should be a really solid Pokemon against him this week. So that is the Mew. Then onto my second win con, kind of my backup win con in this game if Mew's not able to do the job on its own. That is a DD Poisonium Z Zygarde. Now I have to give a shout out to Styx. Poisonium Z plus Sludge Wave was his idea. I was thinking about a different Sludge Wave combination that I'm not going to reveal here just because I might have to use it again later on in the season. But even so, this is what we're going with for this game. A pretty straightforward set in terms of the investment. I just wanted to go, you know, a lot of HP investment to take hits from stuff like the Raikou, the Metagross on his team that's able to both use super effective coverage moves against my Zygarde. I can take either of those hits unless it is a Bandit or Specs Ice Punch or Hidden Power Ice, respectively, in the game. So this is really fat, and this is after rocks as well. So I can take those hits if I need to. I can take HP Ice from Tangrowth and the like. He has a lot of Pokemon on his team that can run Hidden Power Ice, obviously, and I can take pretty much all of those. So that's nice. I think I can actually take an Ice Beam from Vaporeon too if I need to. So that could come in handy. Extreme Speed is nice to help pick off the Dragonite if he does get up a boost, maybe to pick off the Mega Diancie if it's really weakened. So Extreme Speed is just overall a nice move. And Thousand Arrows, he only has the Tangrowth that can resist, which makes the Z Sludge Wave just a really good way to complement that here on this set. So overall, pretty straightforward. It does outspeed the Adamant Dragonite once again. I think Jolly Dragonite actually is what I outsped on this thing just to be safe, as I want to make sure I have something that can at least outspeed Dragonite. I don't want to like aggressively creep with everything and get burned. So yeah, that's the Zygarde. Pretty straightforward. This should be able to break through his team a little bit, if not be a good late game win con if the Mew isn't able to do the job on its own. A lot just depends on how he uses his Z Crystal in this matchup, and if Mew happens to get caught off guard by Z Crystal, then I really will need something like Zygarde, I think, to kind of help carry the load into the late game here. So that is the Zygarde. Not a whole lot else to say on this set. Pretty straightforward. Hopefully should do a good job here. Now we're going to get into some of my more momentum-oriented mons on this team, as you're probably going to see this most weeks throughout the season. That's kind of what my draft is based around. So the first momentum Pokemon is going to be my Rotom Wash. Overall, pretty straightforward set. This is EV to take a hit from an Electrium Z Raikou, as I think that's a very possible set he could bring here in this matchup. So I do have this Spadef for that, and then the rest of my investment is in my defense to help me take hits from Metagross and Landorus Eye, and both this mixed investment kind of helps me out against Mega Diancie too, as being able to take those hits from Mega Diancie I think is going to be pretty important here in this matchup for sure. So overall, really straightforward Rotom set, aside from the fact that I am running Relaxed Nature and Zero Speed, and that is specifically so that I can underspeed his Vaporeon. Baton Pass is allowed in this season, and if he is going to be a Baton Pass Vaporeon, I wanted to have the momentum advantage against Vaporeon in that specific situation. I also wanted Rotom to take the hit from Vaporeon if he's going to try to go for something like a Scald on a Rotom versus Vaporeon standoff, or like a Toxic or whatever. I want to be able to see what he's going to go for. I don't really mind if Rotom gets Toxic in this matchup. It doesn't hurt me that much, as I do have the Pain Split, and I do really just need Rotom to kind of pivot around his team for me and help me check specific stuff. So being able to underspeed the Vaporeon I think is pretty important, as well as just underspeeding most of his team. As Rotom is meant to be the sponge, I want it to take the hit so I can more safely get into stuff like my Mew, or like the Mega Beedrill, Porygon Z, other stuff I'm going to show you here in just a little bit. I want Rotom to take those hits, not the other Pokemon on my team. So that's the idea behind the fat, really slow Rotom set here. But otherwise, yeah, really standard stuff here. Toxic is nice specifically for the Tangrowth, as if I can get a Toxic on that, it'll put it in range of my Zygarde a lot faster. It'll put it in, make it easier to knock out with other Pokemon on my team too, throughout the course of the game. So there's something else the Toxic was for. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I'm blanking on it at the moment. But even so, just overall a solid option to have here on this Rotom. So that is the Rotom. For my second momentum on, we are back in the Mega Beedrill this week, and Adamant Nature is possible this time around based upon his speed tiers. This is exactly what I was talking about as to how I have a nice speed tier advantage in this matchup with my offensive threats. I can run an Adamant Mega Beedrill and still have the bulk investment to take an Extreme Speed from the Dragonite, and I believe that's even a banded Extreme Speed. I don't know if it's after Rocks. It might not be after Rocks, but I know I can take a banded Extreme Speed from the Dragonite here with this set, which can definitely come in handy. This can also allow me to take any random physical hits as well from stuff like the Tangrowth. That's a big one that I think could potentially hit me up with something like a Rock Slide, and I believe I have a chance of taking that hit as well if I'm Mega Evolved, and other random physical moves on his team too. I can't take like super effective strong physical moves by any means, but I can take, you know, relatively decently strong physical moves if I need to here with this set. So overall, pretty straightforward in terms of the coverage. U-turn, Poison Jab, Knockoff, all solid against this team. Knockoff is to remove the expected Rocky Helmet on either the Landorus or the Mandibuzz. I think those are both going to be as most likely switch-ins to this Beedrill, and I think they should carry a Rocky Helmet, if not just leftovers. And in either case, getting rid of the item on either of those two Pokemon is definitely nice for my team. Then Swords Dance is to give me a way to break through the Vaporeon if I need to, as that's something that could easily become a bit annoying for my team. Kind of depends on his moves that he brings, and for that reason I think it's actually kind of possible he doesn't bring it at all. It really has hard 4 move slot syndrome against my team. It wants stuff like Roar, Toxic, Scald, Ice Beam, Wish Protect, even Baton Pass. It wants all of those moves pretty much against my team, and obviously he can only have 4 of them, so he's going to really be pressed for coverage on Vaporeon. But if he is a set that's giving me a lot of trouble at the time, Swords Dance could help me break through something like that, and also would help me break through something like the Mandibuzz if I'm expecting him to go for something like a Roost. So that is the Mega Beedrill. Overall, pretty straightforward. Adamant Nature does a ton of damage to his team. It does an absolute buttload of damage to his team. So the next up is my kind of overall check to a lot of his mons. Pretty much a revenge killer if I need it. This is my dedicated check to a +1 Dragonite. I can take an Adamant +1 max attack, Extreme Speed, that with Life Orb as well. I can actually take that after Rocks with this set. So this will be able to take a hit from Dragonite if I need it to, and I'm not going to let this thing take any damage until I'm in the clear versus Dragonite. That's just the way it is. I'm not going to let it take damage because this is my dedicated response, okay? That's its primary job, is to take care of that. I also have the Iron Tail if I need to check the Diancie. If he's a Calm Mind Diancie and I've let myself get weakened to the point where nothing can take a hit from it and my Mega Beedrill can't knock it out on its own, then this can also bail me out on that if necessary. And if I do have to take Rocks damage to do that, then this is still going to be able to check +1 Dragonite if he's not Life Orbed. So it should be okay either way, as I don't really expect Life Orb Dragonite, but I wanted to be kind of safe, you know, on that. So yeah, just my offensive response to his scariest offensive threats. Download is super nice here. It's also able to help me check the Raikou, as I should get an attack boost versus the Raikou and do a ton of damage with a return against that. And Iron Tail, obviously, if he's a Calm Mind set, I should get an attack boost to help me out against the Diancie. And Ice Beam is so spammable against his team. Thunderbolt complements that perfectly. So just overall, a really annoying Choice Scarfer against his team. And yeah, it's probably going to get at least 1 kill in this matchup. It might get more depending on how many of his ice weaknesses he brings in this particular game. So we'll just have to see on that. But that is the Porygon Z. And then finally we have the kind of another sponge for this team, but it is my dedicated rocker, actually my dedicated lead in this matchup, as he really doesn't have very much that can just straight up take hits, straight up knock this thing out rather in one hit. I think the only thing that might be able to is the Landorus if he's invested. Everything else on his team, it kind of balances off with this investment of a lot of special defense, max HP or close to max HP, and some speed investment. Yeah, nothing really knocks this out in one hit, so I wanted to run the leftovers on this to keep this thing healthy for as long as possible. And yeah, Taunt to prevent his Stealth Rocks in a lead situation, Stealth Rock to get up my own. Toxic is nice for just a variety of kind of fat or annoying Pokemon on his team, like the Vaporeon is a big one. I'd like to get Toxic, because I don't really think he's going to have room for Heal Bell, and if he has Heal Bell, he probably won't have, you know, the other coverage moves he might want on it. Then Iron Head is for the Mega Diancie specifically. I kind of thought about running the fighting coverage option, but I felt like Iron Head was overall just a little bit better against his more scary threats. Dragonite too, I'd like to have the neutral coverage against Dragonite here in this matchup, just to, you know, do as much damage to it as I can, as it's a pretty scary threat. But I am rocking enough speed for Jolly Dragonite once again on this, so I can prevent the DD if he's going to try to go that route. If he is a Z Dragon Dance variant, which is possible to allow him to get past my taunt, then he'll still be taunted and won't be able to DD again, so I can still check him with my Porygon Z. So I think I'm safe against Dragonite specifically. It's a big ol' threat, but I think I'm safe against it. And just kind of from listening to his draft analysis, I really felt like he was going to push for Dragonite to be MVP this season. That's kind of, I think it's almost a direct quote for what he said. And if that's the case, I think he brings DD Dragonite just straight up out of the gate. I think that's what he does. So my team is really heavily geared toward preventing that from beating me. So that was another thought, I guess, that went through my head as I was constructing this team. But that is the team that we are rocking for this week of the LBC, the last battle circuit. Make sure to let me know what you think about the team in the comments below, and make sure to check out the battle that'll be coming out tomorrow on my channel as well as over on Max Rapture's channel. Again, make sure to go give him a look as well. Check out all of his content, but definitely check out our game that'll be coming up tomorrow. But with that said, we are about done here. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in the battle tomorrow. Peace.